my name is Miguel Myers. Welcome to my horror confessional, where every week I will have a guest come on and talk about one classic horror movie that they haven't seen and why. We'll discuss the movie, the actors, and probably get off topic quite a bit. Once I believe that they have properly atoned, I will absolve them of their horror movie sin. Today, we have a returning guest. We have neighbor Tim. Last time he was on, we talked about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which was episode 7. And if you haven't heard that one, you should give it a listen. It was one of my most popular episodes. So, Tim, welcome back to the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so the last time we were on, we couldn't have been talking about a more different movie
Yeah,
than
totally.
we're talking about right now. So Henry Portrait of the Serial Killer. And then you also had some homework,
That's right, I
which I
did.
assigned to you, which I don't remember what it was. So we're gonna give you a pass, unless you remember. Do you remember what it was?
I was going to say, as a teacher, this is bad. I did not do my homework. I remember one was that Eileen Wuornos, the
Monster.
monster. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
That was one of them. Otherwise, I don't remember off the top of my head. I know I didn't watch them though. Been slacking on
Wow.
movie watching.
Wow.
I know, especially those ones.
So we had Monster from 2003, Zodiac from 2007, and To Catch a Killer, which is the miniseries starring Brian Dennehy as John Wayne Gacy. And we were supposed to watch that one together, so that's on me also.
Yeah.
We last time you were on, we talked about your history with horror. I guess now I just have more of a question: like, what is your history with like black and white horror, like the older stuff, even silent films? Like, is that something that you enjoy?
Now, yes, growing up, I never really watched much of that stuff. It's funny, like if I talk with my mom about some random like movie from the '40s or something, she'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's with this person and this person." Like she'll know it, but growing up, we never really watched anything like that. Um, Same like horror wise. It's kind of funny. My wife Brittany, she is not super into horror, but certain things like The House on Haunted Hill, she's like, "Oh yeah, I watched that when I was a kid." There's like certain things that she saw way before I did.
Uh-huh.
But now, yeah, I'll check out whatever pretty much.
So was it that it didn't interest you, like to look it up when you're growing up, or what got you into it as you got older?
Yeah, I think that's probably part of it is that I wasn't. I don't know. I remember being in like junior high and seeing Clerks when that came out, and that
Yeah,
was not a horror movie, but black and white. And I had
black
friends
and
who were
white.
like,
Yeah.
"I'm not watching this shit. It's black and white." And it was like, "Oh, who cares? Like it's funny or whatever." I mean, so I don't know that I had like a big aversion to it. And I probably saw Psycho when I was kind of young. I don't know. It might have just been like not knowing about it, not having access to it, stuff like that, most likely.
And what would you say is your? Do you have a favorite black and white movie or black and white horror movie?
I don't know. I know you said you're going to be talking, or maybe you already talked about Night of the Hunter. I mean, I saw that again. I was like in my
Yeah,
20s by the time I saw it, but I really, really liked that when I saw it. How about you?
yeah, that's a great one. Night of the Hunter. I'm going to be doing a future episode on. Yeah, I mean, for me, I would think my favorite is Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that would be that. But I also there's another movie that I just found recently. It's called El Esqueleto de la Señora Morales, the skeleton of Mrs. Morales, and I might have talked about this in the
I
past.
used to
But
work with a teacher named Mrs. Morales.
what
Sorry
is
to
it about her?
interrupt.
No, no, no.
It's about Anna.
Yes. So this is it's a black and white horror movie from the 50s or early 60s from Mexico, and I just love everything about it. So it's like neck and neck with that. But also you got like Polanski's
Repulsion and stuff like that.
Repulsion. Yeah, like there's
Yeah.
so much because black and white spans such a long time for movies. Like it started when movies came out at the late or the end of the 19th century all the way up until like the 60s.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
60, 70 years of horror or movie history in general. There's so many great horror movies. I just feel like you're saying, a lot of people don't give them a chance. And
Yeah. Some people just dismiss it outright.
yeah, the same with people who won't watch movies with subtitles. It's like
Yeah.
why limit yourself? So
Someone
I'm
says
glad.
like, "Hey, I came to watch, not to read." That's what I've heard people say before. It's like, well, you're
Yeah,
missing
and
out on a world of
like literally the whole
stories,
world.
movies. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I was so excited when you when this was one of the movies that you wanted to talk about. So let's get into it. You have come on to confess another horror sin. Like you can't help yourself.
Stay sinning.
You've come on to confess your sin that you've never watched the Tingler from 1959. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So why do you think this particular movie passed you by? I know you said the House on Haunted Hill. You've seen that one. That's another William Castle movie who directed this
Yeah.
movie. So did you not watch a lot of William Castle movies, or so why did this one particularly pass you by?
I don't know, because this I think is the first one I ever heard of. I mean maybe we'll talk about it later. Like they say it's filmed in Percepto, they called it, where they put those buzzers under the seats or whatever. And
Yeah.
years ago I read a John Waters book called Crackpot, I think. I think it was
Hmm.
Crackpot. And then he said how he saw this when he was a little kid and just got obsessed and kept going back to the theater, and he would look under the seat to find out where the buzzers were, and that's where he'd sit, so he'd
Yeah.
get shocked and he'd scream and everything. And this book kind of talked about obsessions of his and heroes and stuff, and it talked a lot about William Castle and how he's like, the gimmick master and all that stuff. So that was the first one I probably heard of, and I wanted to see it for a long time, but for whatever reason, I mean, kind of the same like with anything, or it's like, well, why didn't you see that? It's just like there's just so much stuff that I want to see that it just got pushed to the side. But since reading that, I've seen probably four or five other William Castle movies before I saw this one, which is the first one I heard of.
I've seen a lot of his movies from the 50s and 60s, like the big ones that everybody's seen, but including this one, The Tingler. But I was listening to a podcast, Daughters of Darkness, I believe it's
Okay,
called, and it's kind of defunct now. But one of their episodes, they were talking about the later films of William Castle. Specifically, they were talking about this one called Let's Kill Uncle,
okay,
and I think the full title is Let's Kill Uncle Before Uncle Kills Us.
cool.
And it sounds really cool. And I saw the trailer. The trailer sounds kind of wacky, or looks kind of wacky. So I definitely want to check that one out. But yeah, like William Castle, like you're saying, he was a legend, but he also had a lot of gimmicks.
Yeah. I think that's like part of the reason why he was a legend, It's just like he was like, hey, show business, like you got to get people in the seats or whatever. So,
Yeah, I think he was a natural, like kind of very charming salesman type of guy, and he got his start in the industry very early. From what I was reading, like he was like 15 years old when he started. So
that's cool.
this, yeah, there's a autobiography on him that I want to read that just didn't have enough time to read it for the episode. But
Real quick, I was gonna say I found so one time probably like 11, 12 years ago, I went to a William Castle double feature in New
nice,
York, the theater, the Film Forum. So
yeah,
they showed that movie 13 Ghosts, which I think originally they said that was filmed in Illusion O, which is like they give you 3D glasses, and they say if you believe in ghosts, keep your left eye open, or like look through the red side. If you don't believe in ghosts or you're scared, look through the blue side. And it was like they'd have these ghosts where if you're looking through one of the colors, it mutes it so you can't see it,
uh huh,
but the other way you can. So it was kind of cool. And they did this movie Macabre, which was one of the ones where they give out like fake life insurance policies, like if you die of shock. And I found it. I was looking today before we were recording. I'm like, I might still have this thing. So yeah, I mean, you could see it, but I
let me
found
see.
this
Oh,
fake.
they gave you the insurance policy
Yeah,
also,
they
or a
like
copy
handed
of
them
the
out.
original one. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, because there was another. I know it wasn't that one. I know another movie of his. They said they had where they called like a fright break, where it was like if you're too scared now, like they'd stop near the climax. If you're too scared, you could leave, but like they put a spotlight on you and try to like humiliate you as you walk to the box office.
Yeah, so I actually was gonna talk about that. So let's just go ahead and talk about. Well, let's first
That's
just
fine.
introduce the movie. No worries, no worries. This is exactly what I want to talk about. So he's directed like House on Haunted Hill, 13 Ghosts, Straight Jacket with Joan Crawford,
Yeah.
and he also produced Rosemary's Baby. I'm
Oh,
not sure if you're
I
aware of
maybe
that.
I did know that. I feel like I read a history of that once, but I forgot.
Yeah, and so this is the book that. So according to Spine Tingler, the William Castle story, he mortgaged his home and obtained the movie rights to the novel before it was published, hoping to finally direct a prestigious A movie himself. But he made a deal with Paramount Pictures. The president of Paramount Pictures insisted on hiring a director turned out to be Roman Polanski, and so Castle had to settle for producing the film. But could you imagine how different of a movie Rosemary's
Right.
Baby would be under William Castle? Like what? Let's take a second here and figure out what gimmick you would use for Rosemary's
Who
Baby. It's gonna be
knows?
like
Yeah. People outside the theater walking around with strollers, like weird stuff like that, you know? But yeah, it would be so different.
it'd be like babies with weird eyes, like being handed out or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was great. I when I read that I was like, oh shit. So then it was written by Rob White, who was a frequent collaborator of Castle's. He wrote House on Haunted Hill, 13 Ghosts, and Macabre, which is the one you
Oh,
talked
wow.
about earlier. And it's starring, of course, the king of the Grand Guignol, the Merchant of Menace, Vincent Price himself. He was in Witchfinder General, The Last Man on Earth, Mask of the Red Death, House of Wax, and also his frequent collaborations with William Castle, Haunted Hill, House on Haunted Hill, this one, and a couple others. Vincent Price, I fucking love Vincent Price
Yeah,
so
he's the
much. He's
man.
so cool, and obviously he did Thriller for he was
Yeah,
the
that's
voice in
probably
Thriller.
probably my first introduction to him, you know, as a
Yeah,
kid. Not knowing
definitely.
it, but it's like, oh, the guy from the Thriller monologue.
This movie is famous for Percepto, like you were talking about earlier. It's a gimmick that William Castle came up with to shock the members of the audience while the movie was while there was a very particular scene happening. And Castle is known for his movie gimmicks. So here's a couple that you referenced already. The House on Haunted Hill was filmed in Emergo, yeah, I think it's Emergo, where a skeleton with red lighted eye sockets attached to wire floated over the audience in the final moments of some showings of the film to parallel the action on the screen when a skeleton rises from the vat of acid and pursues, well, uh, spoiler here, right? If you've
Yeah,
never
right.
seen House on Haunted Hill, he pursues the villainous wife of Vincent Price's character. And it was funny because it's once word spread about the skeleton, kids enjoyed trying to knock it down with candy boxes, soda cups, and other objects. Kids are shits, man.
Yeah, they're like,
Um,
oh, now I have a target here.
yeah, and so then there's the Tingler. This one filmed in Percepto. William Castle actually purchased military surplus airplane wing deicers consisting of vibrating motors and had a crew travel from theater to theater, attaching them underside of some of the seats. So that's how, when the buzzers were activated, it was these vibrating motors that he got
Right.
at surplus, military surplus. 13 Ghosts was Illusional, as you stated earlier. And Homicidal, there was that fright break with the time overlaid on a film's climax as the heroine approaches a house harboring a sadistic killer. The audience had 45 seconds to leave and get a full refund if they were too frightened to see the remainder of the film. In an early showing, wily patrons simply sat through the movie a second time and left at the break to get their money back. To prevent this in the future, Castle had different color tickets printed for each showing. Even after that, about 1% of patrons still demanded refunds. So John Waters described Castle's response. He said, William Castle simply went nuts. He came up with the Coward's Corner.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a yellow cardboard booth manned by a bewildered theater employee in the lobby. When the fright break was announced and you found that you couldn't take it anymore, you had to leave your seat and, in front of the entire audience, follow yellow footsteps up the aisle, bathed in a yellow light. Before you reached the Coward's Corner, you crossed yellow lines with the stenciled message, "Cowards keep walking." And then you passed a nurse who would offer a blood pressure test. All the while, a recording was blaring, "Watch the chicken, watch him shiver in Coward's Corner." As the audience howled, you had to go through one final indignity. At Coward's Corner, you were forced to sign a yellow card stating, "I am a bona fide coward." It's
It's
like,
sick. It's so
God
cool.
damn, dude. He really didn't want anybody getting their money back, you
It's
know?
like movie tickets at that time were probably 10 cents or something, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm not letting go of this 10 cents without a fight, you know?
Yeah, and just a couple more. I'll breeze through them really quick. Mr. Sardonicus from 61. The audience can vote on the villain's fate in the punishment poll during the climax. A lot of times people wanted them to die, so they filmed a mercy cut, but they never had to play it. So they never had to change out the reel or anything. In Zats from 1962, each patron was given a magic coin. It was just a plastic glow in the dark gold colored coin. 13 Frightened Girls. He launched a publicized worldwide casting hunt for the prettiest girls from different countries, and he filmed slightly different versions highlighting each girl for the release in their country.
Wow.
For Straight Jacket, the producers told him not to do anything, but he couldn't help himself, and he printed up cardboard axes and handed them out to patrons as they came in.
Yeah.
And then he did one for "I Saw What You Did" and "Bugs." So that was what he was known for.
Another one I heard once was that he would have like ambulances parked outside of the theater, like, oh, people are getting so scared, we need to take them to the hospital, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. He comes from a different era of like showman. Like he's the
Yeah.
P.T. Barnum of horror movies from the 50s and
Yeah.
60s.
Have you
Unless
ever
P.T. Barnum
seen?
was a racist, then I take it back. I don't know. Probably.
Almost definitely, I bet, but
Yeah.
allegedly. But
Yeah.
have you ever seen Matinee, the Joe
With John
Dante movie?
Goodman.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where it's like clearly he's supposed to be a William Castle type, and he's making these schlocky movies, and how it's
See,
like,
I remember the movie, but I watched the movie before I knew who William Castle was, and I haven't seen it since.
okay,
So
yeah,
I
I've
do
seen,
want to go back and watch it now.
yeah, it's like I saw it after I had heard about him, so,
Okay.
but it's definitely like that's who he's modeled on. He's going city to city with his movies, and there's different gimmicks like, I can't even remember some of them, but there's a similar thing with, like, the seats vibrating, something like that, and there's, like, a kid who recognizes this one guy who's supposed to be he's like a plant in the crowd who's calling stuff out to the William Castle kinda character, and the kid's like, "I've seen you in, Famous Monsters of Filmland. You were in blah, blah, blah," and he's like, "Get the hell away from me, kid," but
Yeah.
it's a funny movie.
I had to check it out again. So the movie opens on a white screen, and William Castle enters and informs us. I love this intro. So he says, "I am William Castle, the director of the motion picture you're about to see. I feel obligated to warn you that some of the physical reactions which the actors on the screen will feel will also be experienced for the first time in motion picture history by certain members of this audience. I say certain members because some people are more sensitive to these mysterious electronic impulses than others. These unfortunate sensitive people will at times feel a strange tingling sensation. Others will feel it less strongly, but don't be alarmed. You could protect yourself. At any time you're conscious of a tingling sensation, you may obtain immediate relief by screaming. Don't be embarrassed about opening your mouth and letting rip with all you got, because the person in the seat right next to you will probably be screaming too. And remember this: a scream at the right time may save your life." So I'm sorry for reading that whole thing, but I just felt like you needed to read it to say what kind of person he was. Like he puts himself in this his own movie and has this whole gimmick right up front. I fucking love it. I
Yeah, I
respect
love
it
that.
so much.
I was like, I wish I wasn't sitting on my couch watching this, I wish I was, like, in a theater
Yeah.
rigged up with Percepto, but, yeah, I thought that was great.
And he gives me like a working man's Alfred Hitchcock vibe, right?
100%. Yeah, I was like, this is kinda like Hitchcock thing, but, yeah, a little more low rent kinda thing,
Yeah.
you know?
Which sounds
Yeah, it
not
sounds
derogatory.
insulting, but
Yeah, but we don't mean it like that,
yeah, it's not like a it's probably just the reality of the constraints he was working under, It's like, I assume Alfred Hitchcock had much bigger budgets and stuff like that than William Castle.
Yeah, and like Castle was like a Corman type. Like he was a
Oh, for
journeyman. Like he would have to they'd give him small budgets and he'd have to come up with the movie and make the movie that he was able to with that budget. So I had nothing but respect for him.
yeah, for sure.
So then the screen goes dark and a man's screams are heard. His head floats towards the audience, and two women's heads screaming join the man. This is very fucking loud. Like I was watching it yesterday just to watch it once through, and I forgot how loud the beginning was. And my wife Hillary was she was on a call for work,
Oh,
and
no.
she's just like, "Jesus Christ, can you put it down?" I'm like, "Oh fuck, I'm sorry." And I'm like upstairs, like I don't know, 100 feet away from her, and she could hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, Brittany and I were watching it. Spencer he's with his grandparents, so we were like, "Oh, hey, we'll watch a movie on the couch." But even that, she was like, "Turn that down a little bit. Like they're screaming right now."
Yeah, yeah, because you guys, when we're at your house, the volume is at like 4.
Yeah, it's
I understand it. I understand
yeah, it's too low. That's why I'm like, "Hey, I have the house to myself this weekend. I'm gonna crank some music. One of my speakers is broken. I came home yesterday and
Of
I'm like, "What is this?
course.
A fucking Twilight Zone or an O.
You were
Henry
like, there
story
was
or something?"
time. There was
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, it's annoying, but whatever.
We fade in on a convict being led to the execution chamber. His name is Ryerson, and two guards drag him to his fate, which is the electric chair. Standing in the hall is his brother in law, Ollie Higgins, played by Philip Coolidge. Then the title and credits are shown over the march to the chamber. In a nearby lab, Dr. Warren Chapin, played by Vincent Price, prepares for the state required autopsy of the convicted and executed man. While preparing, we see the lights go out and the hum of the electric chair for a couple of seconds, which I thought that was a nice
Yeah.
touch. Then the lights come back on. The body is wheeled from the execution chamber to the lab on a gurney, and then Chapin does his work, and then the brother-in-law Ollie comes in to watch. This is really weird.
Yeah,
It's
it's like
like
they're
a
real lax security on that. Just like, is this in the prison? Like, is like, yeah, you can come and watch this autopsy if you want, you know?
yeah. He's like, oh, he hands him a note or whatever from his mother or something saying he could be there.
Yeah.
And Vincent Price is like, all right, I guess, yeah, you're cool. But then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, oh, he's there because they didn't want Chapin, Vincent Price, to be talking to himself, and they didn't want to do a voiceover. So they introduced the Ollie character early in the movie to act as like an exposition dump.
So, yeah, it was like total exposition at the beginning, you know?
Yeah, and so I always love when I can like a lot of movies are do it very well where you don't even notice it. This movie you do notice it because there's no reason for him to be there, and it's in fact
Right.
it's weird for him to be there.
And there's no real reason for Vincent Price to just be like, "Yeah, sure. Let's have a conversation while I'm doing this, and we're gonna hang out later." Like, when is that gonna
Yeah,
happen, you know?
that's so. Yeah, we'll get there, but I was thinking the same thing. So they then chat about the electrocution, and Ali asks if that mode of death or putting somebody to death always works. Vincent Price or Chapin was like, "Yeah, it always works." So then
I think he was like, "You wanna try? You wanna put a, electrode on your temple or whatever and ram 5,000 volts through it or something?"
yeah, it was a bit of detail that I didn't even realize. They dip it in saline solution and put it to your temple and one on your leg and then run the currents through it. I was
Yeah.
like, holy shit, dude, that's
Yeah, I
fucked.
think I think the saline solution, like, helps to conduct the electricity or something like that.
Stay in
Um,
school, kids. This is a
yeah,
teacher
or
tip.
watch a lot of horror movies, you know?
Yeah. So then he asks if it always works. Why do you do the autopsy? And Chapin says because it's the law. He also notes that this man's vertebrae are cracked. They're nearly splintered in two. He explains he's seen this before, always related to fear, and this is the focus of his research. Ollie thinks it might be what causes your spine to tingle when you're scared. Chapin is amused and dubs the force the Tingler, something he's been researching for years with no name. If you have been researching something for years and the Tingler is not a good name. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It's so bizarre, like, I'm a fear expert, is, like, what he said or something like that, like, I study that's my main area of study is fear, you know? I mean, I guess that makes sense, but he put it in a way where it's like, who the hell would
Yeah,
well, I was gonna say, like, who would hire you to do that or something, but then you find out later how he gets his money, I guess, but
yeah, it's true because he's it's more like a hobby for him, right? Like he's a medical professional, but he's not connected to any university for this
yeah.
fear study. So it's more like a hobby, I
But
think.
even it is funny the name they mention it later, but his partner is like he's talking to his partner and says until we can come up with a Latin name, I'm gonna call it the Tingler, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And I'd love to see what that Latin name would have been.
Yeah, who the hell knows?
So then he also states that being the county coroner helps with his research. Many people die in fear. I wonder how many people die of fear. Pretty good line. I'll give it to them. So Chapin asks rhetorically, fear causes tremendous tensions in the body. If you can't relieve them, why can't they become strong enough to kill you? And then he completes the death certificate and prepares to leave. And he what does he say? He says, "Are you ready to go?" And it's like you guys didn't come here together.
Yeah, you met like minutes ago.
Yeah, it's so weird. But I also noticed that my man's pants are so high up. in this movie. Like it's ridiculous how high. And I always
Um,
remember like seeing
Vincent
cartoons.
Price?
Yeah, Vincent Price's
Yeah.
pants are so high up. And I remember seeing cartoons of like people making fun of this style of dress. And I was like, that's an overreaction. But no, it is not an
Yeah.
overreaction.
I always forget, like, in my mind, he's a small guy for some reason. But he's like, I looked it up last night. He was like 6'6" or something. You know what I mean? Like, he
Oh,
was,
yeah.
you could see it in here.
I never pictured him as a short guy.
I don't know why I did. I think like a certain like Witchfinder General, he seems like some little prick who's like overcompensating, you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna be a real nasty, piece of work because I'm angry about this or something. But yeah, he's like strapping, he's like 6'6" or something.
Yeah. So Ali tells him that his brother in law was a murderer and that he killed two women. Chapin says he seldom knows anything about his patients. Then Ali asks for a ride back into town, and the doctor agrees because they're besties right now. Like why not?
Yeah, why not?
It fades to black. The next scene, Chapin stops his car in front of a theater, and we come to find out that Ali and his wife own the theater and the building. It specializes in old silent movies. Ali offers the doctor a cup of coffee. Chapin agrees, but Ali says first he's going to check with his wife. And it's funny how shit never changes, right?
He's like promising something, and then he's like, actually, let me check real quick.
Hold on. So then he goes to check with his wife, Martha, played by Judith Evelyn, who's working in the box office. His wife is deaf and she can't speak either, but they communicate using sign language. And I unfortunately do not speak sign language, so I do not know if the signs that she's using are indeed valid. But I did read. I did read that this actress, Judith Evelyn, took some sign language classes. So hopefully they're accurate
Yeah,
because some of them seem kind of like she just made shit up and she's just miming.
right.
But I don't know. So Martha reminds her husband about working the opening of the theater. And then Ali and Chapin enter the apartment above the theater and they discuss the maintenance of the theater. And Chapin says he'd love to see some of the old Charlie Chaplin films. So the transition, I looked it up, and the transition from silent to talkies was between 1926 and 1930. This movie came out in 1959, so around 30 years later. So this is like us being nostalgic for the 90s, right?
Right.
Which
Yeah.
is kind of cool because you think black and white, like we were saying earlier, black and white spans such a long time frame that you think they can't be nostalgic for something because it's the same thing, but
It's
it's
so
not.
recent. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
really 30 years before or something. Yeah, I looked up the movie that was playing. I forget the name already, but it was like apparently a really successful silent film. They got remade in the 40s or something as like a talkie. It was called like
Tolerable David or
Tolerable or something. It's supposed to be like tolerable, I guess. Tolerable,
yeah,
what is it? David?
yeah.
Yeah. Like
That movie
it came out in
sucked.
like 1929 and 1940. You said you've seen it?
No, but just the scenes I
Oh, the
saw, and I
clips.
was
Yeah,
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 the
like the
clips
little
sucked.
bit they show, yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like, "Oh, I'm gonna rush out and see this."
Yeah. Martha enters the apartment and places cash in a large safe by the front door. She then enters the kitchen and washes her hands. She stares at Chapin and refuses to shake his hands, miming that they're loaded with germs. Besides being deaf, Martha has a serious OCD condition and a serious phobia about something else Chapin discovers after he accidentally breaks a saucer. He reaches into the sink to retrieve the broken pieces of a saucer and cuts his hand. But what he actually does is reaches in and smears blood on his hand and pulls it out because they didn't know that we were going to be watching these 60, 70 years afterwards. So like the action of him dipping his hand in the sink and smearing the blood on it, they didn't think we'd be seeing that, but I totally saw that shit.
I didn't even see that. I gotta check
Yeah,
it again. You
like
could
it
see
dip it,
him.
it dips below the camera line, and so you could see like his hand that's supposedly cut, and then his other hand does something, and you're obviously putting the blood on there because
Yeah,
there didn't look to be a cut in the film in the scene.
right.
So
That was cutting edge in
yeah,
1959, like,
exactly.
oh, they didn't
In
even edit.
in camera effects. So the sight of the blood sends Martha into a rigid, dead faint. Also, notice how quickly she faints here versus later in the movie.
I was thinking the same thing watching it. Like, she's toughened up in the
In the
couple
day or
days
two.
or whatever.
Yeah. So Chapin treats her and explains to Ollie that her inability to scream allows the tension to build inside her. She does not actually faint, but experiences something he calls a psychosomatic escape. Chapin brings the woman around with smelling salts, and then Martha, for some reason, immediately checks the safe to verify the money is still there. Satisfied her money is safe, she refuses to go downstairs to open the box office until Ollie and the doctor have left. Then Dr. Chapin leaves and drives home.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, if she just, she, like, busts her ass all day for that, she's, like, really protective over it. Maybe she, I don't know, just really doesn't trust
The
the
husband.
doctor. She's never met him before, but yeah, her husband also.
Well, because I was thinking the same thing. Like the first time I saw, well, this is now like the second or third time I saw it, but for this episode, the first time I saw it, I didn't understand why she ran to it. But then the second time through, the husband says something later on. He says, if I didn't do it to her, she would have done it to me. And so maybe they had that kind of relationship where she's like, this motherfucker just tried to kill me right now. Let me make sure my money's straight.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all I can think of.
I wonder, yeah, I also was like, I don't know why they I'm no scientist, but the science of this stuff does not seem on the level, but it's like, why would they make the distinction and say she didn't actually faint? I don't know.
Yeah,
I
what's the
assume
reason for that, right?
right, and what's the importance of it? Because it's like, it seems like she fainted, like they just had to say, no, this was something different, something psychosomatic, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
Later, Chapin arrives home in a large, expensive house in an upscale neighborhood. Lucy Stevens, played by Pamela Lincoln, walks down the stairs. She's dressed for her date, and she's also Chapin's sister. Her boyfriend, David, works for Dr. Chapin. They're both pathologists. She tells Chapin that her sister is out on a date. So his wife has money. Feeling neglected at home, she indulges her desire for male company openly.
Yeah.
Chapin takes a certain amount of responsibility for the situation. Lucy says she's out almost every night and with men who aren't very nice. I feel almost like I don't know if he's doing a really good job of not showing his jealousy or he's relieved that other men are giving attention to his wife so that he doesn't have to and he can focus
That he
on
doesn't
his.
have to or something. Yeah, it is kinda strange. It's not like, in fact, most people, if you come home and someone's like, "Yeah, your wife's out on a date with someone," you'd be upset, you know?
Yeah.
And he seems like he maybe is a little bit, but he's not, well, I was gonna say he's not, like, calling her phone, but this was 1959, so, he's not like, he doesn't seem too bothered, you know?
Yeah. So then they discuss Lucy's financial situation. Her sister, Chapin's wife, controls the inheritance and refuses to share it with her little sister. So then the doorbell rings and Lucy answers it, and we meet David Morse, played by Daryl Hickman, and he apologizes for being late. And the Chapin says, "Young man, what do you mean leaving this beautiful girl waiting?" So the relationship that Chapin and Lucy have, it's really nice. It's tender. You could tell that there's love there.
Yeah, it's almost
Um,
like a little, like, they make it sound like obviously her father passed away. And I don't know the age difference between him and his sister-in-law, but it almost seems like kinda paternal, like, um, looking after her kinda like that, and they like you said, they have a nice positive relationship, you know?
like she looks out for him and he looks out for her.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice. So David states that he was late because he was out trying to catch a stray cat for their experiment. It's like not cool, guys. Like you're supposed to be the good guys, and you're experimenting on cats or on animals.
Yeah, it sounds like some Reanimator kinda like, I'm
Definitely,
finding
Rihanna.
something where I can, like, because to do this experiment, otherwise maybe it's outside of the law or something, you know?
Yeah. So David also gives Chapin the prescription that he requested. Just to note here that LSD was still legal back in the 1950s and was being used by psychiatrists for research.
I was gonna see it because it said lysergic acid. I'm like, "That sounds familiar," but then one thing said, like, LSD 25 or something, so I'm like, "I wonder if that's what it is," and I looked it up, it's like, yeah, that was it.
And I have later on when he takes it, he talks about dosing, and so I looked up
Yeah.
the dosing amount, and so we'll go over that as well. It's pretty cool.
Okay, cool.
So this is the earliest mainstream film to depict any LSD trip. So this is kind of cool.
Yeah, because that was the other thing. Like they show it, we'll get to it, but they show it and it's like obviously they're not making it look like a good experience for anybody.
Right.
And it's like when you think of like those kind of like, they had like Reefer Madness earlier, but when you think of those movies where it's like acid scares or something, like those are a long time, I feel like, after 1959. Like The Trip, that Roger Corman movie, I looked it up, it's 1967. And that seems like an early one to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like after that, maybe it's more like angel dust or so. It's something else that people are scared of and freaking out and
Well, no, like
jumping out of school windows or something.
that was Helen Hunt, right?
Yeah, like those
After
type of
smoking
things.
a joint,
Yeah,
So then David warns Dr. Chapman that it can produce pretty weird effects. So Chapin relays a story about Martha and her blood phobia and her fear reaction. So David asks what would happen if she didn't just faint, but in fact died. And Chapin says that's an interesting question. So David is the one who set forth everything here. No, he didn't.
yeah,
But so Chapin tells David he's now convinced what he's looking for is tangible and solid as steel, and he now calls it the Tingler. And I like this because Chapin, obviously, David's there to pick up his girlfriend, but they're talking all this work stuff, and
talking
then
shop. Yeah,
they talking shop, and then just as they're about to walk out, Chapin puts his hand around David and starts talking to him again, and
yeah,
Lucy's just there like, "Oh, you two." But I think maybe like in real life, that wife or that girlfriend would be like, "Come on, dude, what the fuck? Let's get going."
yeah, yeah.
We have experienced this.
I was gonna say you and I in the checking the mailbox, but yeah, Brittany says that all the time. Like we'll go past 2 years or whatever, and it hasn't happened as much. But sometimes you go out and she's just like, dude, you just linger in the parking lot when we're trying to leave somewhere, just like BSing with people. But yeah, yeah, exactly. She's like, oh, you have fun out at the mailbox with Miguel.
But finally, David and Lucy go out on their date. So later, Dr. Chapin sits and reads a preliminary report titled Fright Effects Induced by Injection of the Lysergic Acid LSD 25. It's late, it's about 1 a.m., and Chapin sees his wife out the window. She's kissing her date goodnight.
Yeah,
And
brazen.
yeah, right in front of the house, right? And then Chapin decides to kill two birds with one stone. He retrieves a gun from a drawer. So he confronts Isabel, played by Patricia Cutts, in the entryway. They exchange cutting dialogue. My favorite is from Isabel. Don't tell me you've abandoned corpses for peeping out of windows. And then my favorite from Chapin is, you're just playing the field and vice versa. Such great lines. And then there's
Yeah,
another
he has
one.
a good one coming up, but I'll wait till you get to it.
So then Isabel says, like, there's a word for you. And Chapin says, there's several for you. It's like, okay. So then Isabel was going upstairs to go to sleep, but instead decides to have a drink because she's up for another round of like verbal sparring. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's what their relationship is, probably,
Yeah. So Chapin mentions Lucy and David. Isabel states that David is poor and that they're too young and she will never consent to their marriage over her dead body. And he says that could be arranged.
Yeah. Dude, this was like such a turn, this part. You know what I mean? There are a few times in this movie where you're just like, damn, I wasn't expecting that, where it's just like he seems kind of like a level-headed guy, and then he goes left with his wife real quick, where I was like, whoa.
Well, yeah, but I like that because we all know, or we don't all know people, but there are people who are different to the outside world than
Oh, for
they are
sure, yeah.
to their loved ones or whatever. And so he has two faces. He has a face to his friends and stuff like that. And he has a face to his wife, and it looks like there's some animosity between them. There's some bad blood, and so it's not like she is a victim here, or maybe they're both victims, but she's given as much as she's getting.
Oh, yeah, yeah, totally. Neither of them seem good for each other,
Oh yeah, they are
to put it mildly.
toxic
Yeah,
couple.
yeah, yeah.
So, have you ever seen the Thin Man movies?
I read the book. I'm literate, it's like, what's his face? Dashiell Hammett, who
Oh,
wrote,
okay,
like,
okay. I never read the book.
it's Nick and Nora, right?
Yeah, yeah, Nick and Nora. So you're familiar with their relationship, right?
Yeah.
So like how they're loving, but they have like this repertoire with That's kind of
Yeah.
like we have here, but they hate each other.
Yes, yeah, they're yeah, they're
Dude, I would definitely
not on good
recommend
terms.
the Thin Man series. They're so good. I think Britt would actually love those movies.
She it's possible she's seen them, you know, I'll check it out.
Yeah. Isabel then says, I'm not going to let my sister sacrifice herself like I did. And then he says, you
That's
may have
cold,
to.
yeah.
He says, you may have to. And then he says, or she says, what do you mean? And he says, you suggested a way. And I just fucking love this dialogue back and forth. But she's starting to get uncomfortable and she decides to head for bed. So then he yells at her to sit down. And when he does, he says, there, now you won't have so far to go. It's like, oh, damn, to hit the floor like after you kill her? Like, oh,
Yeah.
shit, man.
But that's what I was saying, like, good, trash talking lines after he pulled the gun on her. Do you remember what he said to her?
No, go ahead.
He said, this is like one of the few things I wrote down. He said, "This thing could put a hole in you the size of a medium grapefruit."
Very specific, my guy.
Yeah, but I was like, "Damn, that's pretty hard," you know?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, she's already like a tiny woman, so like having like a medium grapefruit taken out of your body is like Jesus.
Yeah, that's pretty significant.
So Chapin threats her. He says, unless you give Lucy her inheritance and let them wed, he will let the police know that she may have killed her father for her inheritance. He says, organic poisons, like old soldiers, never die. They just lie smoldering in the grave. Then he says, and I'm not bad at autopsies either. So she still refuses, and that's when he pulls the gun and escorts her into the lab. He tells her that her suicide can be better arranged there.
So just so he was implying that she killed her dad?
Yeah,
Is that's what I thought. Yeah, it's just that.
so she's there's not a lot of likable characters in here except for like Lucy and David and Martha, right?
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
else, like he's trying to kill. This would be either assault or battery. I think it might be battery, because
Yeah.
he's not actually hitting her, but the thought of hitting her, or she thinks he will. So I think that's battery.
Yeah.
But there's that, and then like she obviously sounds like killed her father, all the dudes that she's hooking up with, and then also the husband we find out later, Ali,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of shitheads in there. Like I wanna like Chapin, but he's also like troubled, like a troubled
Yeah,
character.
for sure. Yeah.
So then Isabel refuses to give Lucy her money, so Chapin shoots her and she collapses. So he places her body on the x ray table and then takes 3 pictures of her spine in rapid succession. So then at this point, like you said, we still think that he shot her. And we're like, holy shit. Did you think that he actually shot her?
Oh, totally. I didn't know when he was taking the pictures, he was like taking something out from underneath the gurney or whatever. And it looked like a mirror, and I'm like, is he trying to make something look like she did this herself, or I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on. I mean, I
Do you
still
know?
don't know what's going on.
So those are plates.
Is it
So
like to block the like for X-ray
yeah, that's
things
for an
or?
X-ray. So that's what they put it underneath that, so the X-ray stops there, and it bounces
Okay.
back, and that's how it takes the picture.
Yeah, because he was like hiding behind the door, like like you go
Old
to the
school
dentist, they
style.
put that
Yeah.
vest on you, but he didn't close the door. It was like half open. Him just and, like it seemed.
Well,
I
everything was made
don't
of asbestos back then, so they don't care, man.
know. Yeah, it didn't really matter.
So then he takes his wife and he wakes his wife and tells her, "You're not hurt, dear. It was just a blank cartridge. Thanks for helping with the experiment. You played your part excellently." And she is pissed.
Like even if you're like, oh well, he didn't physically harm her or whatever, it's like he still like put her in a room at gunpoint and made her think she was getting killed. Like he's still a scumbag, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't know. You can argue it's a toxic relationship, but at that point, it's just divorce or leave. What are you doing, man?
Well, that's the thing. I was like, I wonder, because she hints like, yeah, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be able to do this stuff. You wouldn't have your lab. You wouldn't have this, that, and the other thing. So I wonder that must be, he might say, I'm staying here to protect Lucy or something, but it's like he's staying there also to,
They're all suckling on the teat.
yeah. I couldn't say it better myself.
So there's the cat in the cage that we saw earlier, and then he gleefully tells Isabel, "I was going to use this cat, but you made a much better subject. Have you two met?" In the same alley, perhaps. I love this line. Have you two met in the same alley? Perhaps it's like fucking hell, man. Like, what a way to call somebody
You would have called it like a tramp. They probably would have said at that
tramp.
point, or a trollop or something.
Right?
You know.
Yeah, exactly. It's so good. It's so creative. So then Isabel says, "When my turn comes, and it will come, it won't be an experiment." Later in the movie, when we find out about Ollie and all that sort of stuff, Ali says something like, you don't know how it was with me and her. Like, if I didn't do it to her, she would have done it to me, right? And he
Yeah,
says, I do know what it was like. So I think this is what he's talking about here, right?
yeah,
Because his wife just said, dude, if I ever get the chance, I'm going to kill your ass.
yeah. And I wonder. We'll get to that with Ollie and Martha, but it's like I wonder if that he really believed that, like she would have done it to me if not, or if he's just making an excuse.
Yeah, I think he's just making an excuse. He just wanted that
That
money.
that's what I thought, but
Yeah. So the next day, David pulls up in his old car. He brought the dog Chapin requested, but luckily he's not needed. I'm like, oh, fuck, not the dog. So I'm a dog person. Obviously, I don't want the cat killed, but not the dog. But then he leaves the dog in the car. It's like,
I don't
what are
think I
you?
noticed that.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, it's good. It's listened to its favorite music." You see
It's
the
got the
windows are
it's got
closed,
the
the AC
lineup.
is on, and it's listening to its favorite songs, whatever it would be in 1959, you know?
Chapin is excited to show David the X-rays that he took of Isabel. David asks, "Who are these from?" And he's like, "It's not important."
I know, he just totally brushed it, you know?
But he guesses, was it Isabel? And then he gets this really angry look on his face, and he says, "It's not important." So David apologizes. So that's what I was saying. Like, he had a different look on his face when he's talking about his wife.
Yeah.
So the photos show the Tingler in stages of growth and deployment backwards. Like, he's like, I'm showing these to you in reverse order.
Yeah, those were cool looking, I thought, like, those images of it growing on the spine and stuff.
Yeah. Chapin and David discuss what they know and what they need to find out. They speculate that the Tingler may be a solid mass and a living organism, and that screaming may actually de-energize it or de-tinglerize it, if you will. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think this is a cool concept. Like if you think about it, like when you get scared, something grows inside of you. Now, I think about it. This might be body horror, like a little bit of body
Yeah,
horror, right? Because
yeah,
you get so scared that something grows inside of you, and then you release it by releasing the tension. By you screaming, you release the tension, and then it dissipates and disappears. But
right.
it's always there, and it's a really good concept. It's very
Yeah,
creepy.
and if you can't relieve the tension or you can't make it dissipate, it's gonna grow and grow and grow, which is pretty cool.
There's a world in which this movie is made by David Cronenberg, and it's completely fucking different.
Yeah.
Like the Tingler bursts
A
out of the
little more
guy's spine. And
serious.
saying, yeah, and I love this movie, but I'd love to see that movie as well, where it's
Yeah,
taken
for sure.
a bit more seriously.
But I mean, did you ever watch The Brood,
Yeah,
where it's like these
yeah,
little life forms are born out of these negative emotions that are like
yeah. That's true. That's true. I haven't
they're
seen it in a long time.
little like rage baby kind of things,
Yeah,
and you
that's
think
true.
they're like physically born by how someone would normally be born, but it's like they're just when you have these festering emotions, they like grow out. So it's
But
different than a fear thing, but it is that physical manifestation or whatever of
a fear or whatever.
anger in
Yeah.
there, I
Oh yeah,
guess,
that one.
instead of fear.
And even in like Videodrome, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Videodrome, but the tumors grow out of after you watch this particular scene or this video or whatever, and so it's inside you and it just grows and ends up killing you. It's like
Yeah.
that's kind of similar what happens here, yeah, I think this is definitely body horror, which is great because I hadn't even thought about that until now, so that's
Yeah,
cool.
either have I. This is like a
Early body horror
real
movie.
real early example, yeah.
So then they say at the peak of terror, the Tingler is a living organism, and if someone who couldn't scream at the peak of terror then dies, they could extract the Tingler during autopsy. That evening, Lucy, Dave, and Dr. Chapin have coffee in the living room, and Chapin says he wants to scare himself to do more research. to personally sense the power of the Tingler in a genuine fear situation. In a controlled experiment with my own fear, perhaps I can find out all the things we have to know. Only nothing scares me. And then while he's saying this, he's drinking a cup of coffee, but then he's standing up, but then puts one leg on the coffee table and like puts I'm like, dude,
There's a Captain Morgan pose.
yeah, exactly. It's like, what the hell are you doing, man? But it's his house. I guess he can do whatever the hell he
Yeah.
wants. I was gonna
Yeah,
say
I
he
thought
pays the
that
bills up there, but he doesn't. His wife
doesn't
does.
sound like it.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I thought because he's like, this is this controlled thing, but he's basically like tells him to get out of the house, kind of, right?
yeah, he does.
I think, or it's like, how controlled is it? You just lock yourself in a room, and then you're like, hey, I can't get out, so it's okay, you know?
Yeah, he does. He tells Lucy and David to go to the movies or something. They're like, nah. David's like, I'm gonna come into work later. He's like, no, take the night off. I was like, okay, boss.
Yeah, hey, my boss is telling me take the day off.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
I'm, I'm running with it, you know?
So then they suspect that Chapin may try something stupid and dangerous, but and then of course their fears are realized. David and Lucy observe from outside the lab that Chapin takes the LSD and has a bad trip. Before he takes it, he says the normal dose is like 50 micromilligrams. He says he's going to double it, and then he injects it, which I've never seen anybody inject. Well, first of all, I've
Yeah,
never seen anybody use LSD other than in movies. But when used in movies, I've always seen it on tabs, like they put it on
yeah,
some.
yeah,
So I would think that this would maybe get a lot quicker and fuck them up a lot more, but who knows? But I did look it up, and it says LSD is active at very low doses, around 20 micrograms or micromilligrams, and can
yeah,
have very different effects at what are only small differences in amounts from person to person. The appropriate dosing is important. A 1/4 inch square of LSD on blotter paper, which they call tabs, usually
yeah.
contains roughly between 30 and 100 micrograms. So common
Okay.
dosage range is between 50 and 150. So he does 100. So he does like a good amount, but he doesn't
He
overdose or anything like
but he
that.
doesn't go yeah, yeah, he just kinda got right in the middle there.
Yeah, yeah, because I don't know anything about that. So I was really curious to know what kind of dose he took. So it looks like he took a pretty decent size.
Yeah.
Chapin then carefully tape records all his observations and symptoms, and he's tripping balls. He says the room is closing in on him. There's some great Vincent Price acting here. He's like yelling and he's like banging from wall to wall. He's able to experience fear, but despite his desire to not scream, he does in fact scream. And the thing that makes his spine rigid disappears, the tingler. We don't actually see it disappear, but you know that based on what they're saying, it disappears.
Yeah, he thwarted it, you know?
Yeah, I think this is the difference between a movie from '59 talking about LSD and a movie from '69 talking about LSD. Like you're saying, when he was tripping, it was kind of like they didn't really do too much other than like when they showed a skeleton, it kind of like was a little bit weirder. But other than that, he
They
was
do
just
like the
describing it.
wavy visual effect, you know, where things are, like, murky. It's like you watch old movies, if someone's drunk, it's, like, you know, blurry and that kinda thing. That was, like, most of what they did. And, yeah, he had the skeleton in his office or his lab.
Yeah, and they more described what the trip was and showed us what the trip was, which I would have really liked to see Vincent Price in a trip. You know, that would have been I
Yeah.
think that'd be really cool. But they don't do it here, and so it's fine. But
But you're right, like, in the '60s, they would have some kinda psychedelic effect on the film or something, you know?
all I wanted to hear was Vincent Price go, "Whoa, man!"
I'm tripping out. Go.
The walls are bleeding, brother. So then Lucy, David, and Chapin discuss the experiment, and David notes that a deaf person is unable to scream, and then they kind of leave it at that. It's like, we get it. We know what you're trying to do. We can move
Yeah.
on now. Later on, Dr. Chapin stops in to see Ali at the movie theater. He said he came to see how Martha was doing. And so I feel like they're setting us up for a red herring here.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
because later on we'll find out something happened that we thought happened, or something didn't happen that we thought happened. But I don't understand, if it's not what we were led to believe, why he's actually going to visit her. Is he such a good person that he does in fact care about what how she's doing? Like
How she's been
yeah,
since
she
last
just
time.
fainted. Like it sounds like she's done it before and she'll do it again. So like why go visit her? And it's not like you're getting a copay every time you go visit her or something like that, you know. So
Yeah.
what's the impetus, or why is he doing it? I didn't understand it.
He's trying to get free tickets
Right
for
there you
life,
go.
you know?
Because he did say he wanted to see the old Charlie Chaplin films,
Yeah,
and he
they
said
show
that
them once a
what
year.
yeah. So
He wants to be there.
I would love to have my dream would be to have an old movie theater and just show old horror movies all the time. That'd be so fucking dope. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
You live there, you just go downstairs, you're like, "All right." But like him, he really went into it though when he talked about it. He's like, "We clean the bathroom 3 times a week," you know, like he's given the
Yeah.
schedule. But yeah, no, that'd be awesome.
Well, I'd hope they clean it more than 3 times a week, but yes,
Yeah, you know what I mean.
other
But he's like,
things, yeah,
"Deep clean."
yeah, because his wife has that OCD, so that comes out in that way. So Ali says seeing the blood must have been very traumatic because she's off of her routine. Chapin walks up to see Martha in their apartment. And then he talks to her and says that he's there to help her, and he gives her a sedative and then puts her to bed. What it looks like to us is he's giving her that acid, the
Yeah, like just
LSD,
like dumping it in, you know?
right? Because he injects it into her.
Oh, that's right. I was thinking of a different part. Never mind, never mind. Yeah, yeah.
He also sends Ollie to the drugstore to fill a prescription for Martha for some barbiturates, which I remember like in Dare, like barbiturates being pretty bad. You know, so I don't know if people don't take barbiturates anymore or anything like that, but
They were lying to you at Dare, you know? No, I'm kidding.
that
Yeah,
shit
yeah, I
was
know, no, that's
legit.
like,
I also thought like, are pathologists allowed to write prescriptions? I don't know, because
right.
he does just like, here, go get this. You know.
Yeah, because right, he's a coroner, like, in his official capacity, right? You're
Yeah,
not
I
prescribing anything if
don't
you're
think
a
any of his
coroner.
patients need any prescriptions.
And maybe it was a different time, you know? So they'll let, whoever write one.
So then, sometime later, Martha wakes, and then strange things start to happen. Lights go off on their own, windows close, a rocking chair moves with no one sitting in it, and doors open and close on their own, which, again, we'll find out later. How did this all happen? If it was what happened, you know, like,
Yeah. Yeah, while it's happening though, you're like, "Oh, man, she's fucking tripping," you
yeah,
know? Like, he must have really
that's true. Yeah, that's
dosed
right.
her a lot, you know?
That's right. Yeah, at this point, we're still led to believe that she's stripping, like you said, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So then a creature with a scarred face and an oversized teeth menaces her, and this creature was in her husband's bed. And so they slept in separate beds, which I thought that was kind of cool. Like I remember that shit, like hearing about that, like on the old TV shows and shit like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So she also sees, first of all, that the creature with the mask, whatever, looked really cool. I
Yeah.
like that look, you know.
But what is he holding, like, a knife or an
Yeah,
axe?
and
And
he's
he's
holding
just,
it.
like, pointing it in her general direction kinda? It was
Yeah, it looks like Nosferatu a little bit.
yeah, 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 for sure.
He's holding a knife, and then she also sees a
Nosferatu was, that was silent, right?
yeah, Nosferatu was silent. Yeah.
I wonder if they showed it at their spot, you know? He, like, ran it one day, he's like, got the
Oh,
idea, you know? "Hey, I'm gonna get this,
maybe it was like a
this
movie
Max
that
Shrek makeup or whatever."
maybe like she was like, I don't like watching that movie when they play it, and he's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, I got you. Nice, really nice. So then she does see a hand with an axe come out of a closet, and it's kind of coming down very slowly on her. But
yeah,
the whole time she's just like, she's terrified, but of course she's not able to scream. But still, she didn't pass out like she did earlier. But then she makes her way to the bathroom, and she locks the door, and then she sees blood flowing from the faucets in the sink, and then
yeah,
also she turns around and she sees the blood is
in the tub,
in the
right?
tub, right, filled with blood, right.
Like foamy blood.
Yeah, and it's like gurgling or whatever. It's kind of
Yeah.
nasty, and then like a hand starts to come out of it.
So when you watched it, Did it turn color at that point?
Yeah, it was red.
Okay, I didn't know if that was just, like, the thing I watched, something got colorized, but that was a cool effect, like, black and white the whole time, and it's just, like, blood, red blood pouring out of the faucet, you know?
Faucets in the tub was all red. And in fact, so I looked it up, and to create the footage of the bright red blood flowing in a black and white film, they simply built a set in shades of black and white so that it would photograph on color film as if it were being shot in black and white. And
Oh,
then
wow.
the blood was just really red blood. So I thought that was
Yeah.
a really cool technique.
So that part, they used color film, but that's cool, they made it look black and white, that's
Yeah, they so it was
cool
color
trick.
film, but they set it all to look like it was black and white when they shot it, and then they just had red blood in it. So it was really cool.
Yeah. But, yeah, like you mentioned earlier, it's like in the scene when Chapin broke that saucer,
Uh,
she fainted, like, almost immediately. And this scene, obviously, it would be boring if she fainted immediately, because then they wouldn't show you
all the cool shit.
all the wild stuff. But, yeah, it was like, "Yeah, she's lasting, like, a minute here, 2 minutes or something."
Well, even when she sees the blood, she's still around. But then the bathroom medicine cabinet opens, and there she sees her own death certificate. This is a bit
Yeah,
much. Like you're a little. Come on, guy.
that was some William Castle right there, you
Yeah.
know?
So then she collapses to the floor, dead. And so yeah, a little bit of stretching there, but still really cool scene. I
Yeah.
really dug the whole scene. So later, Dr. Chapin arrives home to his phone ringing, but there's no one on the line by the time he answers it. But then he
Mm.
finds two drinking glasses on the coffee table, and he concludes that his wife has been entertaining. And then his wife walks in, and he says, "Did you hear the what the little husband said to the big wife?" He says, "Why does the back door slam every time I come in the front door?" I just thought it was so funny. And then he also says that he holds up both glasses and he says, "Nothing like a good two-fisted drinker." And what does she say? Do you remember what she says here?
I don't remember.
She says, "How do you know that I didn't pour one just for you?" or something, right? And
Yeah.
then he looks down on the table and he sees a gold tie clip, and he's like, "I've never been a gold tie clip person." And she's like, "But you are, dear, you are." So she's like Shaggy, right? It wasn't me.
Yeah, yeah.
But you cut me on the counter. Oh man. The doorbell rings, and Dr. Chapin answers it, and it's Ali, and he's brought his wife's body over to the home. And right away, I'm thinking, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Call the police. Call an ambulance.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have ambulances right there, but I'm sure they had a hospital. They had to have. Yes, there were hospitals. And take her to a hospital or something. But he doesn't. He takes
The
her.
only yeah, the only thing that makes sense is, like, Vincent Price is a coroner, so he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna bring it I know this guy's a coroner, I could bring it to her I could bring it to his house." But it's also like, you could bring her to the hospital and see if they could revive her, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like
Not
he's
just be like, "Yeah, she's dead, let me go see what the cause was," you know what I mean?
right. Yeah.
Um,
So they both carry Martha in and place her on the exam table in the lab. And Chapin confirms she's dead and has been for at least an hour. And then Ali says, "Well, I guess I wasn't much of a husband to her." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you think your first instinct was not to go to the hospital, but to go to some stranger's house you just met a day ago?" You know?
just throw her in your car and drive over to Vincent
Yeah,
Price's house.
exactly. Like, did he stop and get a coffee before or something? I don't know. Then Dr. Chapin records the time and circumstances to complete the death certificate. So all of a sudden, Martha's body rises up on the table, still covered in the sheet, and then she slowly settles back down. And Ali is convinced she's still alive. This was a pretty creepy.
Yeah,
I
that
like when
was
they do
really cool.
this. Yeah. And Chapin assures him that she's still dead, but wants to find out why she moved. So I looked it up, and rigor mortis usually kicks in after 3 hours, but Chapin
Okay.
just said she's been dead for an hour. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking, having like pretending to just watch this the first time, is she really dead?
Yeah, that's what I thought, but yeah, at
So
first.
yeah. So then he asks Ali if he can do an autopsy on her. I don't think this is legal. Like
Yeah.
there's got to be something here, man. I know we're in the 60s or 59, but there's got to be some law against like
home
getting your
autopsy.
yeah, home autopsy. I don't know, man.
It's the type of thing that, like, Vincent Price could lose his license for, you know?
So then we get a real cool silhouette shot along with the heartbeat of the Tingler moving and squirming as Chapin is performs the autopsy and removes the Tingler from her spine. So he removes it from her spinal cord or whatever, and it's about 16 inches long and resembles a black lobster or like a huge earwig with pincers on the back, the front and back.
Yeah.
In fact, the Tingler is a large scale model of a velvet worm, also
Oh,
called
okay.
a peripatus. It actually has its own phylum, and it's called Onychophora, all right,
Okay.
or Onychophora. It's about halfway between an earthworm and an arthropod.
Okay.
So I like that they kind of based it off a real life thing, you know? That's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
I thought it looked awesome when they first showed it. When it was, like, attacking his arm and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, "Man, this thing looks good."
I mean, for
Like, better than I
1959,
expected.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think so. Watched the digital version, and I think the digital version has been edited to take out the strings that they used
Oh,
to
okay.
make it move. Because
Yeah,
in
'cause
the original cut, there's strings out there, and I remember watching it, I believe, and being able to see strings, but we can't see them in this one.
I rented it online from the library. So, but yeah, I couldn't see any strings or anything like that. But even that being said, like, when they first showed it, I'm like, "This thing looks cool," and, like, 5 minutes later, I was like, "Alright, maybe it doesn't look as good as I thought 5 minutes ago," you know?
Chapin calls for a glass tank, but before he can secure the creature, it pinches his arm. But his screaming causes the creature to release the grip on his arm and fall limp on the table.
It's
So
like those fainting goats, you know, they yell and then this is it's like, you do one part, the Tingler does the other.
it's kind of a weak sauce for this killer, right? It's like everything has its weakness, like Superman with his kryptonite, or Freddy with I don't know coffee, but like his thing, the Tingler's thing, he causes the scream, and the scream
Kills him,
kills
yeah.
him. The only person he could kill is like the deaf woman, or like
Yeah.
even I guess as we see later, a sleeping person. So then Isabel enters the lab. She's repulsed by the creature. Ali asks how strong it is, and Chapin replies, "Strong enough to kill a man easily and quickly." So Chapin puts the Tingler in a perfectly sized wire mesh carrying case. I thought, how convenient that you'd have this thing that is exactly the length that you need
It looks like you'd have, like, a raccoon in there or something, like
to trap vermin or whatever.
yeah. I was thinking of it he gets a different container later, but,
The film case.
yeah, that makes sense because he's at
He
the
was right there.
theater.
Yeah. So Isabel sneakily grabs a small vial from the lab and before leaving, looks at the Tingler and was like, "Yeah, I'll see you in a little bit, right?" So she goes out and she pours the contents of the vial, which we can assume is the LSD, into a glass on the bar. Then back in the lab, Chapin says that they should call the police, but Ollie declined, saying he doesn't want to have to make them wait for the police. And then Ali agrees to take Martha home and notify both the funeral parlor and the police in the morning. And everybody's okay with this. Like Chapin puts up a bit of a fight, but he's like,
A
you know
little
what,
bit, yeah.
you know best. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, call the police, call the ambulance, call the Ghostbusters or something. Somebody
Yeah.
needs to be called here.
Yeah, I wonder why. Because he put up a little bit of a fight. I wonder if he's just like, this is his wife, like, he might be in a state of shock that she died now, like, I'm not gonna press him too hard because he's grieving in his own way, or something like that.
But this is even the way that Isabel reacts to her when she sees that Martha's dead. She asks Ali, "Oh, is your wife dead?" And he says, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh, okay." Like they move it on. This feels to me, it sounds terrible, but it feels to me more like he's taking a dog to go see a vet, and more
Yeah,
than taking his wife to go see a doctor. Which he's not
right.
even maybe I don't know if he's a doctor or not, but like I mean, obviously he's a doctor, but I don't know if he's a practicing physician or something. So
Yeah.
yeah, this whole scene felt very weird, and I don't know if it was just because of people differing opinions of women in that time or what. Maybe they didn't. The way we treat our dead now is different than the way they used to treat them then. They wouldn't call an ambulance necessarily, whatever. I don't know. It just
I
felt very
don't know.
weird.
Yeah, because you're right. Because and Isabel, it was like her response when he said, "Yeah, my wife passed away," was just like really not flippant, but just very just like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Like
Yeah,
that's it. Nothing more than that. It's kind of bizarre.
it's like, ooh, damn, that sucks, dude.
Ooh,
So then Ollie leaves, and then afterwards, Isabel suggests to Chapin that they have a celebration for the discovery. She says something her husband has been seeking for years, and then she kind of apologizes for being quote unquote like a bad wife. So then she's already poured the drinks, and she walks over to Chapin and she offers him one, but he demands the other instead, and she agrees, knowing her husband doesn't trust her. But he gets to spiked one anyway. And then I was thinking like insert Man in Black and Vicini quote from The Princess Bride.
What you do not smell is called iocane powder. It is odorless, tasteless, dissolves instantly in liquid, and is among the more deadly poisons known to man. All right? Where is the poison? The Battle of Wits has begun. It ends when you decide and we both drink, and find out who is right and who is dead.
yes, exactly. Because right, she knew he was going to do that. Yeah, so
She knew that he wouldn't trust her enough to, he wouldn't take what was handed to him. He'd rather have what she was holding. And she knew
right.
that, so she switched it up.
So she switched him. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So then she says, I can always count on you to do the right thing. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So then she asks about the Tingler, and he explains that it's very powerful. And then Ollie calls and tells Chapin that Martha's now at the funeral parlor, and also that he's called the police. But Chapin passes out from the drink before Ollie can complete his conversation. We then go to Ollie's apartment, and we see Martha still lying in the bed, and he gathers up all the materials that he used to scare his wife to death: the mask, the knife. So now we know that Chapin did not give Martha LSD. He just gave her like the relaxant or whatever that he said he was going to give her.
yeah,
And in fact, Ollie killed his wife. So that was the
yeah,
red herring that we were talking about earlier.
yeah. That's like I said. There was a couple of those big switches where I mean, I wasn't expecting in the beginning that I was like, damn, Chapin just shot his wife just like that, and then it was like, well, no, that didn't actually happen. Oh man, Chapin. I guess maybe I'm selling him short. I'm like, he's killing everybody all over town, but he didn't do either of them.
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, I don't remember if they showed it. Like, I get he had the mask, he had the axe, but what about that hand in the tub? Like, was
That
he
was,
hanging out?
yes, that's exactly my question, which I was going to bring up. It's like, so first of all, who's making the chair rock? Who's making the windows go up and down? Who's opening the door?
He's in a wetsuit, in a scuba suit in the tub, sticking his hand out.
Yeah, he's playing Scuba Steve, and he's just like, yeah, I don't know. That's a plot hole, and it's never
Yeah,
explained. It's not like
yeah,
uh, in the suitcase that we'll see later. There's like a red covered wetsuit or something like that.
right, right.
So later, Chapin is sleeping it off. Isabel brings in the Tingler in its carrying case, and she lets it loose to hopefully kill Chapin. Once she opens the case, we get the loud heart pounding, which sounds really cool. And then it eventually crawls out of its cage or the case and crawls over to Chapin, climbs up his leg, and proceeds to strangle him with its four pincers. Fortunately for Chapin, Lucy arrives home and she hears the struggle and she runs into the living room. She sees the Tingler and screams, which disables the Tingler's grip on the doctor's throat, and it falls on the rug in front of the couch. A funny thing was she walked in, heard him like struggling for breath and all that, like really loud, and then she's like, "Oh no, never mind." And she walks upstairs, and it's only because she heard it again. It's like, what did you think it was the first time? Like,
Yeah, she kind of thinks like, oh, he's, Chapin. There he is, textbook Chapin, just being silly.
yeah, like I don't know if she comes home all the time to hear him choking himself or something. I don't know. It's weird. It's really weird. So then the scene just ends. So the next day in the lab, Chapin tries to destroy the Tingler. He holds a blowtorch and tells David, "Nothing affects it. You can't destroy the thing." So David is excited at the medical discovery, but Chapin explains that he is not going to share the discovery with anyone, not at a convention or with the journal article. He says, "The Tingler exists in every human being we now know. Look at that. It's an ugly and dangerous thing. Ugly because it's the creation of man's fear. Dangerous because a frightened man is dangerous. We can't destroy it because we've removed it from its natural place." Chapin decides it has to be put back inside Martha's body and hopes it will be reabsorbed. This is pretty grisly here, if you think about it, for a 1959 movie. This is a dead body that they cut open, remove this thing, and now he's going to open it back up and shove it back in there.
I mean, at that point, the thing is like 10 inches long, or maybe more. Like it's big at that
Yeah.
point. So it's when he took it out of her back, it might have been smaller. I don't know. Yeah, it seems like how are you going to do that? You're going to pull her skin back and cram it in there. It's gross. Yeah.
Yeah, it's real gross. Again, with the body horror. So Lucy comes into the lab and reports that Isabel has left, taken her clothes, and moved out. So then he's like, that's fine, probably for the better. So Chapin tells Dave to call. So let me back up a little bit. This seems like a very we're drawing to the end of the movie. It's a really short movie.
Yeah.
It's runtime, I believe. It's like an hour 22, and so
Yeah.
we're probably like an hour in right now, and it kind of just ramps up here. It goes like full on like sprinting for the finish line, and they kind of don't give an ending to Isabel's character other saying, yeah, she packed her bags, she packed her shit and left. It's like, I understand you have a short runtime, but I would have liked to see more come from that, especially
Yeah.
because the Isabel character is so great. Like, she's so like witty and like charmingly evil. I would have loved to see her some more.
Yeah. It's yeah, pretty bizarre that that was it. I guess it was like she was gonna leave. She's gonna wait until he's dead, come back to the house. Like it's her house. She's gonna.
Yeah,
That's why I
dude.
didn't get it. That's why I didn't get her packing her stuff because it's like, well, maybe she's just leaving for a month and then.
Oh, so I was under the impression that she left when she found out that her plan to kill Chapin wasn't successful. But what you're saying was she planned to kill him and then left and
Yeah, I
didn't
might have just
know whether or
misinterpreted
not.
that.
No, I like that the way you're saying it as well, because then that still means that she has a rude awakening coming if she like
That's
went to
true.
Europe for a month and was gonna come back and be like, "Oh no, my husband's dead," to be like Chapin is still
You?
there, like, "Yo, what up, dog? Like, you thought you killed me, but I'm still here." Well, what is it? The rumors of my demise have been seriously exaggerated or whatever. So then Chapin tells David to call Ollie to find out where Martha's body is, but Ollie doesn't pick up. He also has him call the police and the coroner, and Dave does so. And again, police said they had no report of a dead body, and neither did the coroner. So then Chapin grabs his bag and the Tingler in its cage and departs for Ollie's place. So back at Ollie's home, we hear the phone ringing and we see him packing. He empties. So the phone ringing is David calling him from
Yeah, Chapin was
Chapin's
like,
house.
call and don't
He,
hang up until he answers.
yeah, I like that as well. So then he empties the safe of cash, and Chapin arrives and confronts him. He kind of lets himself in, and he ends up finding the objects that Ollie used to frighten Martha to death. And then he's like, "What'd you do with the body?" He's like, I called around and they said there was no body. So eventually he finds Martha's body in the bedroom. And Ollie says, this is where he says what we said earlier. You don't know how it was with her. She would have killed me first. She tried a bunch of times. And I'm like, sure, buddy. Sure.
Yeah, he just seemed like he was full of shit, just
Yeah.
trying to protect himself.
So Chapin says he's going to call the police after putting the Tingler back. So while he's preparing Martha's body, the Tingler has escaped from its cage and gains entry to the theater below via a loose floorboard. Now this is where the fun shit starts happening.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's perfect, This seemed like it would be like a Alamo thing, like you don't talk, don't text, or the Tingler will
Oh
get
yeah,
through that
like the,
kind
the
of.
little stingers at the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
what it made me think of. But yeah, this once when you saw that it's like, oh, it's made its way into the theater, I was like, oh yeah, that's fun.
so the Chapin and Ollie start their search for it. They go downstairs to the theater, and the audience is watching the movie, like you said, Tolerable David from 1921. The Tingler is in the theater, kind of like just doing its thing. But then there's a couple on a date in the audience, and the dude keeps trying to get a kiss from the woman, but she says no and keeps pushing him off.
Yeah, it's like 3, 4 times where she's like,
Yeah, he's a bit
no,
he's aggressive. He's a douchebag, and so she moves to another seat to get away from him. So then the Tingler works its way over to her and crawls up her leg and tries to latch onto it, but she screams. And when she screams, obviously it falls off. But what I thought was cool was that we have these intercut scenes from the movie Tolerable David, and the scenes go way too fucking long. Like, I'm not here to watch this fucking movie. I like silent films. This movie sucked. Or maybe just out of context, it sucks. But
And I mean, I looked it up to just see if it was real, and that movie is like 40 minutes longer than The Tingler.
Jesus Christ.
You know?
Yeah. That's crazy. So, but the audio kind of syncs up from the movie in that, like, it's really suspenseful, which I
Yeah.
liked, and we're seeing like the Tingler get closer to this woman, and it's kind of suspenseful. So then she screams, and it falls off of her. Then all of a sudden, Chapin turns the lights off and tells the audience there's no cause for alarm. Like a woman has fainted, but everything's under control. Continue watching the movie.
Yeah, that was cool. Like, oh, they just shut the lights off. So if you're watching this in the theater when it came out, it's just pitch black in there in that part, and your chairs are vibrating and all that stuff.
Yeah. So then the projectionist prepares for a real change, but then we see more of the silent movie. It's like, sheesh, come on now. So the Tingler crawls through an opening in the wall, gets to the projection booth, causes the film to flutter and break. Before that, its crawling silhouette shows on the theater screen, and Chapin and Ollie, sorry, shows on the theater screen, and Chapin and Ollie see it. And then the audience in the theater murmurs, and then the lights go out again, and Chapin again tells them, the audience, not to panic, and implores them, scream, scream for your lives. The Tingler is loose in the theater, and if you don't scream, it may kill you. Scream, scream, keep screaming, scream for your life. And this is such a great Vincent Price like sound effect or whatever.
Yeah,
And at this point, this is when Percepto came into play. So the
yeah.
buzzers that we talked about earlier, they were hidden underneath randomly selected theater seats, and they went off, causing people in the crowd to scream in surprise. And
Have you ever heard the Gilbert Gottfried podcast by any chance?
no, I know
The
you told
Amazing
me about it, but I
Colossal
haven't.
podcast? Like, for whatever reason, they talk about this movie from time to time, and it's always just Gilbert Gottfried doing his Vincent Price impression where he's saying, "Scream, scream for your lives!" Like multiple times they do that for whatever reason.
How's his impression?
Pretty good, better than mine.
I want to hear your Gilbert Gottfried impression of Vincent Price. Go.
Uh, it's no good. It's what I just did. It wasn't very good.
All right, all right, all right.
The woman who is screaming when the Tingler first crawled on her, did you notice that was like that opening scene where it just had random people screaming when the movie first started? Like how
Okay.
you said you had to turn it down when Hillary was on a work thing. That was
Yeah.
like that woman, the guy who was her date, and one other face that
Oh,
was,
really? I didn't notice that.
yeah,
Oh, that's
I'm
cool.
pretty sure
Okay.
because I'm like, this guy looks familiar. And then, you know, I must have seen that opening part before with the screaming,
Yeah.
but I
S-
think it was him.
So then, after all the screaming and the screen is black, we hear Vincent Price or Chapin say, "The Tingler has been neutralized by your screams. There is no more danger." And then he's like, they just turn the lights on and everybody goes back to normal. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, there'd be a stampede, there'd be a riot to get out,
Yeah.
you know?
People running out. Yeah.
So the lights come back on, and Chapin and Ollie are in the same spot that they were. They didn't go turn out those lights because the lights are out in the hallway, and that's
Yeah.
exactly where the mic is. There's no way he could have been out in the hallway, made the announcement, come back, turn the lights on, and be in the exact same spot. I want continuity in my movies, man.
Yeah. In my William Castle
Yeah, in my Tingler
productions.
movies. So Chapin and Ollie run to the projection booth. The projectionist is being choked by the Tingler. His scream causes the thing to release its grip on his throat. So Chapin loads it into a film canister and carries it back upstairs to where Martha's body is located. Ollie admits that Chapin gave him the idea to kill his wife, but Chapin says just because poison happens to exist is no excuse to commit murder with. And I like that line. That's a good
Fair
line.
point.
So then he then places it back into Martha, and then Chapin informs Ali, "This time you're going to the police with me." But Ali pulls a gun and corrects the doctor. He says, "You're wrong. You're going by yourself." Chapin says, "Ali, come on. This isn't going to do anything. I'm just going to go down there." But he says no, and so he calls his bluff and walks out. And then Ali walks towards the door, but it slams shut on its own. And then the window shuts. Then all of a sudden, Martha's sheet covered body rises up. And then she stands up and stares at her husband, which is kind of us. Like, it's a very close up shot of her eyes and her face, and it looks great. And then we see Ollie, like, his face is contorted into a really good, like, like I can't even do it, but it's a pretty good face.
But they like hang on that for like 5 seconds, 10
Yeah, a
seconds,
while. Like, I'm glad he has decent teeth because otherwise. So he silently screams in fear. So then the screen goes black, and then we hear the body fall to the floor. So we close with final words of wisdom from Dr. Warren Chapin. Ladies and gentlemen, just a word of warning. If any of you are not convinced that you have a tingler of your own, the next time you're frightened in the dark, don't scream. The end. So, first of all, I just want to back up a little bit here. Is it a ghost movie now, or was the body being controlled by the tingler?
I know, because it's like when she sat up on the gurney or whatever, it's like, oh, that's like the Tingler moving around or something. But to have it where, yeah, she's up now staring him down, right? It's a I don't know. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah, I don't quite understand the ending. It's a cool ending.
Yeah, and I
Doesn't
like
necess-
I like the narration at the end from Vincent Price, but the ending is a little. I mean, it's him just like making a face like so scared for, like I said, for like 10 seconds, just not believing it.
Yeah, and so Ali doesn't scream. So then that means he died with his fear. He died by fear, and so then
Yeah,
did he create a tingler? So there's a tingler in him now.
yeah, but I guess now Vincent Price knows like I'm not taking this
He's
from
not gonna
its
take it out.
habitat,
Yeah,
right? Because he realized he shouldn't have done that before with the last one. That's why he's putting it back, you know.
yeah. So he has to make sure that he's the one who is the autopsy person on this body, right?
Oh yeah, that's a good point, right? If it goes somewhere else,
They may make this big
they may
discovery.
not be fear experts. So, they might be like, what is this giant mass in this guy's back?
They're
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
"Hey, yo, what the fuck?"
Hey, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's they go to New York for that autopsy.
All right, so that's the end of the movie. So, what did you think of the Tingler?
I'm glad I finally watched it. I was like, this is really fun. Um, like I said at the beginning, I wish that's something I think would be really fun to watch with a crowd. Like Brittany and I watched it, and that was fun. But yeah, I was like, I'm glad I finally watched it. For a movie like for all of the shortcomings you could say, it's still like I've liked every William Castle movie I've watched. Even if parts are cheesy or whatever, it's still like, oh, this is fun. I was surprised, like you said, with those red herrings, like I fell for them. I didn't expect the twists and the turns that happened. So overall, I was a fan.
Yeah, I feel like William Castle movies have a different vibe than other movies, and you can feel like the love of cinema in his movies,
Yeah, yeah,
and you just have fun with it. And it's just like a person who loves to scare people and wants to do a good job of it, and
yeah,
it's like proud of the shit that he does, and
yeah,
you could feel it coming through in it, and yeah, it's so great. And Vincent Price is just so fucking charming.
yeah,
Even he had his shithead tendencies in here, but we're still rooting for him. It's because he's in any other character, any other actor, or not a lot of actors could have pulled off doing what he did earlier in the movie, and us still liking him and still rooting for him. You know,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I love the combination of William Castle and Vincent Price in a black and white horror movie.
Talking about William Castle, talking about what is it called? Matinee earlier. Like
Yeah,
there's scenes in that where John Candy is in the theater, like watching the audience reaction, and you could tell he's excited, right? Like watching people get scared and react to his movie. And I think that's probably pretty true, to how William Castle was. You could picture him like, oh yeah, they're loving it. They're eating this up right now, like getting excited about it, you
yeah,
know?
there's something to be said about somebody who wants to put on an event for you, like
Yeah,
he's like doing like guerrilla style marketing before it wasn't even a thing, and it's
right.
like you were saying earlier, the draft house, the Alamo Draft House here in Austin, and I mean now they're kind of around the nation, but they put on events like that where you get like little trinkets or whatever to use. Like I think we did it for Blazing Saddles. They had like a certain thing. They had like fake gun, like cap guns, and other shit like that you use throughout the movie. And like I think that's kind of came from this William Castle stuff, and it just
Yeah.
it's magical. Like he this is somebody who William Castle's like somebody who thinks that movies could be magic and wants other people to experience that,
Yeah,
and I just
understands
appreciate
that
that.
and appreciates it and right, and respects that and wants to keep it going.
Yeah, so I definitely I want to read that autobiography that we or not autobiography. I think it's just a biography that I talked about earlier. I want to definitely watch some more William William Castle joints. This is a William
Yeah.
Castle joint. I want to do that. So, all right. So you're a veteran of the show. So what we normally do here is we rate the movie with 5 upside down crosses. So I think I had some trouble out of you the first time when we tried to rate, and I'm probably gonna have some more trouble out of you this time. But what would you rate this movie out of 5 upside down crosses? Yeah, because
No,
you don't rate things on Letterbox. You're an animal,
I usually don't. I think last time when we talked about
Henry.
Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, it was like I don't know. I think I gave it 4 upside down crosses, and I was like, I don't want to watch it again anytime soon. But I thought it was good. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. I feel like my ratings are pretty arbitrary, but this I'd say like 3.5, solid 3.5. Above average,
Yeah.
but not mind blowing or anything. But
Is this one that you would watch again?
yeah, at some point I would. Like I said, I'd love to watch it in a theater with a crowd with Percepto. But I wonder, like, really quick, I was reading reviews on Letterboxd when I was logging it, and somebody who I follow on there said, and this is someone who's like our age, so not someone who saw when it came out, was like, oh, I saw this with Percepto and I screamed. It was great, like something like that. So I'm sure the capability is still there. So I think that would be really fun to see it. I'd watch it again, but yeah, I'm in the mood for like an old Vincent Price thing. I could throw this on, you know.
So you the review you read was so somebody within a decade or so watched the movie with Percepto Vision or whatever with Percepto. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, it said like saw this in Percepto, so 5 stars. Sorry, I screamed.
That's awesome. But there
Yeah,
there is something like that. I mean, not. I think maybe the grandchild of it is like that 40X. Do you know what that is?
I never did that, but, yeah, I know what you mean, where you're, like, your chair's shaking and they're, like, spraying water in your face and stuff.
Yeah, and it rumbles and you got audio and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. I mean, that how can you not help but see that there's a to draw a straight line from what William Castle was doing in the Tingler to 40X right now, you know?
Yeah, and that's the type of thing where even, like, 3D, sometimes people are like, "This is just a gimmick, and it's not, it's like kid stuff or whatever," but depending on the movie, it could be fun, sometimes you go to see something in 3D. I wouldn't do it a lot, just could give me a headache, but it's like sometimes you'd see it, you're like, "Oh, this is cool, this is fun." I remember as a kid, I went to Disney World, and they had a Michael Jackson thing, I think, like Mr. EO or whatever,
Okay.
and seeing that, and it was like they'd be, like, misting water onto you and stuff like that. I don't
Oh,
remember
that's cool.
much about it, but yeah, I think stuff like that is fun. Have you done the 40X thing before?
No, but my brother did it recently. I think it was for Spider-Man, the newest Spider-Man, and he said it was
Okay.
dope. But I
Yeah.
think it's like $22 a ticket. I was like, yo.
That's what it was, where I was like, "Nah, I'm I'm okay," Just being cheap as usual.
Yeah, but I mean that's maybe every once in a while for a particular movie you go do it. But I don't know if we
That's
have
like
any in Austin that do that, you know.
not that I know of. But yeah, if it was like Godzilla versus Kong or something, I'd be like, "Oh, I'll go see that."
Yeah.
But yeah.
They throw a banana peel in your face, you're like, hell yeah.
Well, oh my god, I could feel it. Yeah, I don't think anywhere around here does it though that I know
You're like, yo, dead ass, I'm gonna go see that shit at
of.
40X.
Yeah,
Shit.
that would be sick.
All right. So what next? What we normally do here is, in order to be fully absolved of your sin, we assign you three movies. But seeing as how you're a bad student and you're still going to burn in the fiery pits of hell, I'll assign these to my audience so that they can get some movies that they want
That's just
to.
extra. You didn't say this is before I die. I
That
thought
is
that.
true. That's true. I didn't give you a due date on that. All right, Tim. So to be, in order to be fully absolved of your horror movie sin, I'm going to assign you these three movies. It's up to you in your lifetime to watch these movies, and you're going to be coming on again. So these movies are going to start to pile up,
It's
buddy.
gonna start piling up. Yeah, I gotta get serious about my salvation.
So the first one I would say is Let's Kill Uncle from 1966, directed by William Castle. We talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this one. So if you want to watch it together, I'd watch it with you because I haven't seen it. It's a 12
Cool
year old.
poster. I just looked it up.
So a 12-year-old orphan who has just inherited a fortune is trapped on an island with his uncle, a former British intelligence commander who intends to kill him. This one sounds dope as fuck. The other one I would say is House of Wax from the original House of Wax from 1953. I know this one is the Paris Hilton-less version. I know you really
Right. I've
wanted
seen
Paris
that. We
Hilton.
watched that together with Stanley. Yeah.
And then the third one would be Mr. Sardonicus from 1961. This is another William Castle joint. It tells the story of Sardonicus, a man whose face becomes frozen in a horrifying grin while robbing his father's grave to obtain a winning lottery ticket.
Oh wow, that sounds cool.
Yeah. So I think all of these are William Castle movies directed. And yeah, I think obviously you enjoy him because you've seen a bunch of his work and we've enjoyed him as well. So all these three are ones that I need to see as well. So
All right, so you said Let's Kill Uncle,
yeah, Let's Kill Uncle
Mr. Sardonicus, and what
and
was the other one?
House of Wax.
And House of Wax. Duh. Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. So check out those three movies. The next time you come on here, hopefully you watch them and we'll talk about them.
Sounds good. Yeah, these are ones I would yeah, House of Wax, another good poster.
Great
I'm
poster.
adding them all to the watch list right now.
Cool. So, another question I had for you was: would you recommend this movie to other people?
Totally. Yeah, I will. I would for sure. Yeah, I think it's really, really, really fun, really worth watching. So I would recommend it for sure. 2 thumbs up.
No, three and a half upside down crosses. Quit trying to
Yeah,
mess with the
there you go.
format.
There you go. I'm not trying to get you sued. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly. So, all right. So, thanks for coming on the podcast again, Tim. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of
Oh, thanks
fun.
for having me again.
I know last time you shouted out your Instagram. So, if you want to do that again.
Did I? Yeah, yeah, sure. It's in my headache, all one word.
And if you'd like to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at MHCPod. You can follow me on Instagram at MyHorrorConfessional. If you'd like to email us, you can email me at myhorrorconfessional@gmail.com. The music was done by Taylor Fox. You can follow her on Instagram at @TheTaylorFox. And her band Great Hag will be dropping an album soon, so look out for that. And the artwork was done by my friend Cap Mikey. And you can follow him on Instagram at Capin_Mikey_arts. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.